Right. We're about to go live on all platforms. In just a second, we should be live. All right. Let me get my mic here. It's good to see you all today. I'm excited to present to you some of the things that we have talked about in our supervision. And so I want to share that with you. Um, Excuse me. Uh, we talked about a lot of stuff. The funny thing is that we had supervision actually today, Friday, and we we have a super engaged group on Friday, and we just got into a whole different topic. I probably need to bring that topic back to another one of these and share it with all the rest of the groups. We got into a deep topic on ethics, and then we just start going to the board's website and investigating some of the things that we're commonly losing licenses over or even having to pay fees. Did you all know we have to pay fees for stuff? Yes, it's amazing. You know, if you get into some trouble, it's some fees involved. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about today, but that's how engaged that group is. It's one slot left in that group, by the way, if you're interested in receiving supervision. But let's move on to what we want to talk about today. I want to talk to you all about, I'm going to try to move through this as fast as I can, but I'm telling you, this is going to be a good session to join if you want to learn a little bit about borderline personality disorder. We're going to give you some quick tips, some ways to intervene, some quick ways to really just be able to capture every aspect of the DSM in a quick glance. Okay. So we want you to learn that. We want you to be able to share that with your supervisees and be able to use it in practice because we need to be able to identify. And so we're going to go through that and talk a little bit about that in just a second. And so what we're talking about today, let me see if I never can find my title and I'm always losing something here, but the title is Borderline Personality Disorder Cause, Symptoms, treatment, and some test prep tips. And that's what we have for you. So I'm going to go on and jump in. What I've been doing lately in supervision, I'm going to share my screen in just a second, is what I've been doing lately is trying to bring about some of what we talked about from the previous session because the repetition really does deepen the impressions. And I'll bring some of what we talked about into the session to make sure that we captured it, make sure we remember it, make sure I explained it well enough because sometimes I may not have. And so that's an opportunity to reintroduce it. And so we went through a few of the test questions. Compensation was one of the ones that we learned was from Alfred Adler, and we discussed the compensation on the last video for last week, and we talked about substitution and and we talked about actually all these. So we did a quick review of that, but then we jumped into some new material for this week. And this was the first question that I asked. I like to give a lot of test type questions, which helps us to understand how to be introduced and ready to move in real life scenarios, but also they're coming out, supervisees are coming out, and they're going to need to take the test. And so we want them to be ready in that aspect as well. All right. And so here was the first, and this one is actually credit to Pocket Prep. Check them out. I'm going to give attribution, Pocket Prep. Okay, y'all know how to do that, but yeah, check them out. But the question was, all of the following are associated with borderline personality disorder, except which one? So you have to know a little bit about the symptoms. If you don't know enough about the symptoms of borderline personality disorder, you will learn them after by the time we're done. You're gonna know more than what you started with. I'm hoping, right? We got a lot. So let me hurry up. So, of course, we got to do the deduction. From what we see here, what can we identify as being symptoms of borderline personality disorder? In A, you see poor impulse control, B, emotional dysregulation, and then C, control of aggressive drives. And the answer for this one is definitely we have poor impulse control. Then we have also definitely emotional dysregulation. But then we also have a lack of many times control of more aggressive drives and things of that nature. Anyway, the answer for that is C. And we got that again from Pocket Prep, and that helped us out. Sometimes I'll see some things that Pocket Prep puts out because I'm hearing a lot of positive. I'm not getting paid by them, but I see a lot of positive responses from former supervisees with their test prep information, and it works well with some of the things that we're training on. And so yes, and so we want to skip over a little bit. Let me see. To the question about what causes borderline personality disorder. I don't know if many of you all know what causes borderline personality disorder, but I'll play this a little bit. Attribution to uh, Med Circle. uh, and Dr. Romani talks a little bit right here about what the causes are. Have you thought about that? What are some of the causes or the things that they believe contributes to someone being diagnosed with borderline personality disorder? We don't 100% know altogether, but there are some variations of ideas, and she's going to talk about.
Validating early environments.
Okay, so that was one. All right, let's skip
But
back.
it's two things coming together: a biological vulnerability and coming from an invalidating early environment. So the biological vulnerability part, that part we're not entirely clear what that's about. Is it genetic? Is it a neurotransmitter issue? But something biologically about that person has resulted in them being more hyperreactive. They sort of overreact with emotion, with sadness, with anger. That couples with coming from an early environment, usually a family environment, that's very invalidating, where people are downright hostile, abusive, negating, critical in a chronic way. Listen, no parent gets it right every time. This is the majority of the time.
Okay. And so what we do, and this is what makes it interesting, is we add these videos. I'm going to try to clip these videos if you want to, use some of this in your supervision or just learn about borderline personality disorder yourself. But this is a great video by one of my favorites, Dr. Romani, and she kind of breaks it down. And so what she's explaining is that with borderline personality disorder, some of the causes we're thinking about is that we're supposing is from having caregivers who were invalidating or coming from an environment or home like that, or biological causes. In my opinion, to be honest, we often reference biological when we just really don't know the answer. uh but yeah, so that's in there, and it does seem to be some type of correlation scientifically with that. So then we kind of like to bring it all home because I feel diagnosis is very central to being able to treat in a correct way, in a correct manner. And so it's almost like if you go to the mechanic and he misdiagnoses, then what's going to happen? You walk away with the same problem. Of course, when you diagnose well, then it just helps the whole flow of things. You're not treating things you don't need to treat. Like with the mechanic example, he might have fixed something else that, yeah, this is a 15-year-old car, but I, that's not what the problem was. Okay, so you might do therapy treating something, but you may not be treating what the person is really there for and what they're really needing. And so we have to have appropriate diagnosis. And what helps us to be able to do that is knowing things like what we're talking about right here. So if you lack a sense, and this is often what occurs with borderline clients, I think I included that in here. If you lack a sense of trust in yourself and others, like many borderline clients, which attachment style are you most likely to exhibit? Which attachment style are you most likely to exhibit? And so that's going to be a question. Quick commercial, and we're going to come right back. For those of y'all still with us, we're going to show you some tricks, right, on how to be able to identify these symptoms and what have you. But I do want to make everybody aware, at least, of our upcoming social work supervision training that is going to be on March 24th and March 25th. If you want to be a supervisor, which is one of the most rewarding things that you can do, or that I do, then you want to be there. We also have a DSM training. A DSM training, if this required for everyone who is a LICSW, you need to get a training from somebody on the DSM. We have an awesome training for you, and we'll leave a link to that before we get It'll be in the clip. But let's go and get on back to what we're talking about because I mean I'm just really passionate about this and I love learning myself. For me personally, I take at least 2 hours. I'm not playing with their money. I take 2 hours to prep, and that's why you see all this information. But I'm learning, and so it's a win-win situation. Anyway, I know I need to check my time. Anyway, if you lack a sense of trust in yourself and others, like many borderline clients, which attachment style are you most likely to exhibit? A, secure; B, avoidant; C, anxious; or D, disorganized. There's a quadrant that we need to know about, and this is crucial to being able to do what I call the emotional math to try to figure out what's going on with the client. We've got to go back in time, okay? Especially with conditions like that solution focus is great, but the evidence-based treatments many times point back to these type of childhood type of things that are very helpful, and it's helpful to know some of this stuff when we're working with clients with these sorts of conditions. But anyway, not to get into that. To answer this, we need to kind of know about what attachment is. And so really quickly, there's a quadrant. So we've got a square with four boxes in the square. Okay. And so on that first one to the top left, that's secure. Secure attachment just means that we pretty much have a high degree or a functional degree of trusting others and trusting ourselves. Okay, shift over to the right, then we have anxious. Anxious means that, man, I really trust the heck out of you, but I don't really trust myself. Problem there. If they come to therapy, we want to help them to resolve that lack of trust in themselves. And then there are many times they're anxious, so they're overly trusting others. A lot of codependents fall into that quadrant, people pleasers. Okay. Then we have one, two, we go down to three, the bottom left. And typically, well, what you'll find in that category is our avoidance. In my opinion, I mean, from some of the more updated stuff, all those on the bottom are pretty much avoidant, but just for the sake of this example, I'm not going to get too deep into that. But the third quadrant is avoidant. What does avoidant mean based on what we have? Let's do some math here. Avoidant means that pretty much if I'm avoidant, I I I I have a high confidence and trust in myself, but not in other people. That's a problem. There was something in your childhood. If I know that's you, I'm already profiling without even thinking. It's just second nature for me. I can start putting together things that probably happened to you in your childhood why you don't attach well. Well, when we go, I don't want to go too much into that. When we go into that fourth quadrant, one, two, three, four, the bottom right, that is disorganized. And disorganized means we really have a lot of challenges. To be honest, I wouldn't should be like woo wee because most of us are probably going to fit within the three, not the fourth. What secure means we're good to go. A lot of us are gonna fit into, well, I wouldn't say most, quite a bit. I don't know the stats, but anyway, let's just leave it there. So disorganized. Disorganized means, man, I don't have a high degree or reasonable degree of trust in others or myself. And so I'm not attaching to really anybody in a functional way. And this is what we see often with individuals who have a diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. So in this case, to answer that question, guess what? It's D. Try to save it to the bottom. Now, I asked the question to the group because we need to know who we're working with. And we go over this over and over again because it has a stick in it. It's a lot of material. The question was, how much do those with borderline personality disorder generally desire connection? Let me take a look here. I need to check my time, y'all, because I'll just go on. Okay, so we're at 13. So let's move. All right. So, how much do those with borderline personality disorder generally desire connection? Now, when I look at the DSM, which I don't, I do like this now, right? So, with borderline personality disorder, um, when I look at the DSM, there are about nine different categories for symptoms for borderline personality disorder. You only need to meet the criteria for five of those nine. Forgive me if I'm miscounting, right? And I'm going to show you how to get all nine in your head without stroking out, right? Okay. So But so with borderline personality disorder, trying to multitask here really fast. I'm a great multitasker, y'all, as you can see. Anyway, so borderline personality disorder. One of the criteria, and it's the first one, mentions about, and I think this is very relevant to many, a whole lot of a large number of borderline personality people diagnosed with borderline personality disorder have issues with abandonment. Okay, all right. So not all though. Okay, so if we have an issue with abandonment, we're asking the question, how much do those with borderline personality disorder desire connection? Do they desire connection? Because they don't attach well a lot of times. In many circumstances, they're not attaching well with having a good degree of trust with themselves or trust with others. Okay. So if you come to supervision, this is what you're getting. Okay. So come check us out. Anyway, I just had to throw that out there or send somebody. So anyway, we try to break it down. So with borderline personality, so there's a trust factor. Okay. Trust factor. So what does the mental math say relative to this question? I call it the mental math when we just gotta put these equations together. I wasn't good in regular math, so I try to create a mental math. That's what I call it, right? So the mental math says to answer that question, if I fear abandonment, say that I'm one of the borderline person diagnosed with that. I fear abandonment. Um, 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 if I fear abandonment, what does that mean? I don't want others to abandon me, right? Duh. But it's not just duh. We got to really think about it. I don't want others to abandon me. When I asked this question, I didn't get a direct response in a number of the groups. So I don't want others to abandon me. So then what do I desire if I don't want others to abandon me? Um, I desire the opposite of abandonment. Well, what's the opposite of abandonment? I desire for people to stay. Matter of fact, I have fear of people leaving. I get anxious about people leaving. Here we go into the anxiousness. All right. I get anxious. And because I have a desire to be connected, but sometimes even not get off course, I will sabotage things when the relationships get really close because of fear that it's just going to dissipate as expected in my mind. So I might sabotage. I don't want them to leave, right? So to answer that question, yeah, many do fall into that category, especially particularly ones that have the abandonment type or the ones who have that symptom of abandonment. Okay, so now here we go. So how do we remember all these symptoms right off the top of our heads without having a stroke? I have mnemonics that I try to use on all our major or most common disorders, and you can get them on the internet or wherever. But the mnemonic for borderline personality disorder, and you all, this walks you through every single symptom from the DSM, from what I could tell, every single, all nine. I think it's not one, two, three. Let me not because I'll mess up. So I think it's nine. So it walks you through all. Okay. And so impulse. If you know the mnemonic impulse and you learn these, I'm not gonna go through all of them. Okay. Then you will be able to identify at any point in time what the symptoms of borderline personality are. You won't only just know them and be prepared for the test, but if you see it head on, or if you're going to speak, at an engagement or something, it'll be at the top of mind. Now, so I use ChatGPT quite a bit to help me to get my okay. We got to close in about a minute. Help to help me with my information. You literally can go to ChatGPT and not even have. I said, look, ChatGPT, create multiple choice questions with the answer and explanation for each of these questions. Rephrase these questions appropriately. Blah 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 blah. Let me see if I can find that to share with you all. I'm gonna show you what ChatGPT did for me, y'all, because it helps out. It helps me out. This is my secretary. Uh, let's see here. She's good. She's very good to me. Okay. Makes me look smart sometimes. Okay. And so I just put it in jumbled and everything. And look at what it gave me. As a matter of fact, for most of mine, it'll give me a more detailed explanation. You should do this even for yourself. You could create your own test questions right off of ChatGPT. And this is what I use, and it did it in seconds. This is all that I put in the ChatGPT, and it generated these responses, and it sounded much better than my question. Okay. All right. And so then we got the answers here. Okay. So we should have the answers. I gave y'all the opportunity to cheat. Uh, this thing just wants to keep going off. I'm sorry. Let's see. Let's get on back. Let's get on back here. All right. So, which therapy is widely recognized as one of the most evidence-based approach. That's probably, was that my chat GPT? Yeah. Which one of these is widely recognized as one of the most evidence-based approaches for treating borderline personality disorder? Cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectical behavioral therapy, psychoanalytic therapy, exposure therapy. What's the answer, y'all? Okay. All right. Some of y'all got it, some of you didn't. But the answer is B. Uh Next, I asked them that. So we're getting some test prep stuff in, and we're learning. Okay. And so the next question is, who is credited with developing DBT? Yeah. So that was better than my question, right? Who's credited with that? We don't want to give it away. And our selection is Aaron Beck, Marsha Linehan, Carl Rogers, D. Uh, Sigmund Freud. And what I'll do is I'll tell ChatGPT, give me a detailed explanation. I didn't say detailed on this one, so it just gave me a summary. So the answer for this one, of course, is Marsha Linehan. Uh, which she's known for or credited for developing DBT, but then ChatGPT gives us an explanation that, hey, this is a fairly newer one. It's in the 80s that it was developed. And then it tells you a little bit about the other disorders. Same thing up here, right? So I'm telling you, use it. This stuff will make you smarter. Okay. And so then we went into some interventions. You come to my supervision, you could come with the knowledge, okay? And Dr. Ariel Swartz, I hope I'm saying her name. I bought something off of test. I bought some CEUs off of Pessy, and I did one of her courses. She's awesome. And so she talked about emotional dysregulation, right? And so one other thing, right? I think I have it up here. So we talk about DBT, but I start asking them, do you know the pillars of DBT? Do you know what the modalities of DBT are? Well, I got a mnemonic for that, DIME. And D stands for distress tolerance. I stands for interpersonal effectiveness. M stands for mindfulness. And sometimes I forget these while, when I'm talking to them. So say if I quote something wrong, just forget about it. All right. And E, emotional regulation. Okay. And so I think I had that at the top anyway. Yeah. So that's, yeah, emotion. This is what I kept saying to the group. Let me correct that. I was like, I think this is wrong. I got confused with the question. Okay, emotional regulation. All right. And so we go through that, and we talked a little bit about what we don't want to just cite off emotional regulation. We want emotional dysregulation. Uh, but we want to see that's I'm getting confused. It's one of those DBT. I think it's emotional regulation. But anyway, we want to know what that looks like. Okay, we want to know what it looks like when you're treating and using certain techniques to use when we're using the DBT skill, emotional regulation. When we're trying to get somebody emotionally regulated, what's some of the skills that we want to use? And so we showed these videos to help out with intervention. Okay, and so one of the interventions was opposite action. Right, opposite action. It is a DBT skill where you intentionally act in a way that is opposite to your emotional urges when those urges are unhelpful or maladaptive. Okay. And then I asked the question. I didn't make it through all of these, but this one was loaded. I came with it. We had another question. All right. So we talked about attachment earlier. Who is considered the founder of attachment theory, which explores the dynamics of relationships between children and their caregivers? And the answer for this was John Bowlby. Okay. Uh, okay. But getting back to the intervention, we played this. And lastly, we broke it down. Look, I'm way over time. Let me see where are we at? Where are we? Ooh-wee. But y'all learned a lot today. So this is a resource I'm gonna put in the chat if I can remember. But if you say, hey, well, you're talking all this, but how do I put this into practice? Well, sometimes if you don't feel comfortable, or even if you do feel comfortable, get you a worksheet. I found this online. I don't know who put it together, but I really liked it, and it breaks things down. And I don't have time to break it down, but I'll leave it in for a resource. These are the questions that you'll ask the client and go from there. Man, let me tell you, I try to give you all value. If you haven't gotten any value, then it's nothing I can help you with. I'm so sorry. I pray for me that I'll do better. But I hope that this has been valuable for you to use in your groups, but also to use in practice as well. Tell people about Social Workers of Alabama. If you're looking at one of our channels, join LinkedIn, YouTube. And we hope that this is helpful. And if you have any suggestions on what you would like for me to talk about, you could put that in the chat as well.